Oh, look, adjustments. There we go. It's us.
Good Friday morning.
Good morning.
I've got hair.
You do.
Look at that
have
hair. I'm Teresa Mitchell. That's Ani
I'm
Haynes.
Ani.
And this is called This Is Now Bridge to a Better World. And we got things to say. Title that I put on my little script here is Natural Disasters in Political Social Context.
Is that in fact because that's the title of the show?
That's the title of the show. And the subtitle is Holy Shit, Y'all. From The Guardian, at least 16 people have been killed by the latest storm. According to the Tampa Bay Times, and recovery efforts continue. They write, meaning the numbers could rise, which is to say, of course, the numbers will be a great deal higher than that. The hurricane made landfall less than 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene hit Northwest Florida and stayed over land as a tropical storm with an unexpectedly high death toll of 230 people, the highest since Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005. And it brought some things from Katrina to mind. They write, brought damage from flooding and high winds to 10 states. Milton's powerful and destructive weather system, which produced dozens of tornadoes in Florida on Wednesday, wrecked an estimated 150 homes, knocked out power to more than 3.3 million customers, and I think a couple million of them still have no power. Swept over barrier islands with 6 feet of water, toppled a 500-foot construction crane. You know, when I saw the Tampa Stadium ripped off, I thought, how is that supposed to withstand a hurricane? Come on, it's fabric. I feel like, the same people who paid for that are now tapping large sheafs of paper and saying, this bridge, it turns out, is publicly owned. Anyway, Naomi Klein.
Good analogy.
Yeah, this fabric will withstand a hurricane. Yeah, sure it will. Naomi Klein pointed out in her book, Shock Doctrine, that although the shock scheme, was designed by the rich and powerful to stun workers into submission with harebrained schemes, wars, whatever, the phenomenon can work both ways. And so it is now that Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton have strained but not drained the nation's resources. Ani and I come to you to speak of climate change and necessary social change. Speaking for myself, I'm reminded of the opposite, of horrors that come knocking after the storms in the form of, say, something we were mentioning just last week, I think, a white racist militia shooting desperate people trying to cross a half-sunken bridge to access food and water and medical care after Hurricane Katrina. And indeed, the many horrors that were unleashed in the hurricane's name, sort of like the Israeli army after the horror of October 7th. This time around, we have Biden rather than Little Boots Bush and heck of a job Brownie, but the ghouls of October came early to Hurricane Helene.
Heck of a job, Brownie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you remember Heck of a Job, Brownie?
I do. And for folks that may not, what blew our minds a couple of days ago was actually thinking about Katrina being 19 years ago. So for folks that may not remember Heck of a Job, Brownie.
Yeah, it's a generation ago.
It is a generation ago. And so, to elaborate on that, I think is a good idea. Because what we saw then was an administration who was really dead set against most of the population. And what we saw was an incredible act of official state erasure and murder of communities of color. There were communities of color left isolated, left in peril, left starving, left without water.
Left in a giant lake in the 9th Ward.
And instead of rescue efforts, as Teresa was pointing out, they were getting white supremacist militias shooting folks for trying to survive. There were troops going, but not to aid the people worst affected. They were going to, in fact, enforce the rule of law and shoot the people affected, even though they had no place to go, water to drink or food to eat. So that was this, all under Bush the Lesser, aka Little Boots, who just couldn't praise his FEMA administrator more. And so that were the references that Teresa was spitting there, and those are important facts. That's an important history to remember and to compare and contrast to what is actually happening now with relief efforts. Go
Right.
right ahead.
And it's the same party, the MAGA demagogues, spewing a fascist fire hose of disinformation to confuse the survivors of Helene, so that some people in North Carolina have actually shot at FEMA rescue teams, and one martyr has already fallen amongst them while being denounced as a Jew, as if this were 1424 rather than 2024. The horror of Katrina was planned. The nation had more than sufficient resources to bring aid to the survivors, but they were viciously withheld. One example that I always bring up, because it's so huge, would simply be the construction brigades, the famous CBs, who laid airstrips in 2 days during World War II. Where were they? They were busy at the time constructing an impregnable occupation fortress in the center of Baghdad, which still stands today. Even mentioning them was met with hisses from the conformists, I haven't forgotten. And it's important to remember that we were capable of what we were capable of as a former great nation. In 1906, when San Francisco was cut off from the nation by a great earthquake and fire, rescuers actually laid track with a locomotive following so that the relief pulled by the locomotive could be brought in by the ton, and following locomotives, of course. They accomplished that in 4 days. The spirit then, despite horrific social faults, was one of camaraderie. I mention this so that we can think of the devolved, stunned, spiritless masses we have become after 118 years since then of corporate hegemony. I mean, that's what has done it to us. We have become employees more and more and more and more. And we have been distributed less and less. We have been distributed less and less wealth and power. And it's worse now than it was even then. But it doesn't have to stay that way. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Luckily, we are in an election period, and these issues and the issue of surviving, remediating, and repairing climate change is right before our eyes. So we must demand of our hopefully newly empowered Democrats, that's up in the air, isn't it, that they abandon their corporate masters or face our wrath and our organized refusal to work. The United Auto Workers is calling for union contracts to expire in 2028 so that a general strike can be held then. Excuse me. That's a pretty mild version they're promoting. There's an article about that process in Jacobin right now. But I say the same unions can and should aim, all unions should aim for a popular May 1st, 2026 general strike to end the parasitism of the super rich and to politically loot the great oil corporations for funds for climate relief. If a general strike were accomplished, of course, it would not do all that all at once, but it would absolutely stun corporate America, and boy, do they need stunning. Imagine that, a year and a half to prepare for an event that would shake capitalism to its core. A real general strike, as in the past, requires serious organization and committees to provide the food, utilities, housing, and cash that the rich will withhold. We can and must instill terror in those lofty suites where the only trickle down since 1980 has been their contempt and urine. The great unions are finally allowing the phrase general strike to issue from their mouths. And here's hoping that fact can crack the long-built complacency of the American worker. But even saying that, I mean, we're so far from that now that most people who have depended on a paycheck all their lives, if I were to go across the street in any direction, whose education apparently does not extend as far as plurals versus possesses and English punctuation, still proudly turn their heads and insist that they are some mythical middle class, as if they had a country estate and a pony. The hell they do. We're workers. Be proud of that. Spread that attitude until people repeat worker with pride and solidarity, knowing that we're all on that great and unbeatable team. So forgive me for ranting. Misa est.
I liked your rant. I love it when you get no rant control. These are the issues before us. And you were saying, we are in an election year and we have the ability right now to pull the lever and attempt to make the most change for the good that we can make. I think that Teresa's covered the stakes of climate change. We know we've been talking about them since we started doing this live stream a few years ago now. And certainly it was a topic that we revisited on our shows on community radio, because we see it as an existentialist threat to the planet, right? And we see it happening now around us. We used to sort of point to an occasional bad storm, an extended fire season, mostly things happening in other parts of the world with monsoons that were growing ever more deadly, with droughts that were bringing famine to ever wider regions. But now I'm seeing those chickens, right? They're coming and they're roosting, or they're being blown away by gale force winds, one of the two. And And so we really, as much as we implored people not to fuck around when the rest of the world was in peril, because we all, share this marble, we are now completely out of time to even save our own country, our own lands, our own people. And it just cannot be ignored anymore in this country. We are really good as a country of going into deep denial,
Oh yeah,
right?
well, we're assisted with that
And
every day. I mean, if I
absolutely.
may, I mean, have you all noticed that every event like this, they come out with the immediate death toll, which is useless, always useless. You don't know how many people are dead, and they'll say, "We know that one person is dead," and then the phrase floats through, and this applied to Helene as well and to other storms. Well, fortunately, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, and then check your watch, 3, 2, 1, 230 dead, massive
Well,
destruction. Oh, did Taylor Swift fart?
but there's also the idea that there are excess deaths that go on for years from this
Yeah.
because medical treatments were interrupted because people could no longer get to, the oncology clinics where, people's lives are completely disrupted. The stress levels are enormous, especially as you find out that your insurance is playing the capitalist game of excluding your completely demolished house because there was some clause somewhere on page 37 of that contract that you didn't necessarily get a lawyer to scrutinize with you, and you find that you were left with nothing after doing everything right. So we know that there's increased deaths. What is that phrase? Excessive deaths, years following incidents like this. And the fact that we've had Helene and Milton back to back, devastating, really the same swath of communities. These people are under tremendous stress. Their health, even if they've survived the storms, their health is degraded thereby. And so, what do we do? I'm going to say we have a very clear conscious choice about voting and about voting for the Harris Walz ticket. I feel like there are a lot of folks who are really kind of dissatisfied with a lot of sort of political chatter, right? Um, how, how is Harris doing on world peace? How is she coming out against genocide? These are important issues. How is she on bodily autonomy, women's rights over bodies, LGBTQ rights, rights of reproductive freedom and health? How is she doing on, all of these things? Stack them up. I've heard people say that they cannot, in good conscience, vote for the Harris Walz ticket because that would make them complicit in genocide.
Guess what?
And so they're just, maybe not going to vote this time because they realize that Trump, not good. But they don't really see that there is a clear moral choice. And I'm
Yeah.
going to argue right now there is a very clear moral choice. And that choice is to vote for Harrison Walz. We can continue organizing, we can continue pushing from the left. We have to do that. I'm going to refer to the trolley problem, right? We all know the trolley problem. It is the idea that you cannot, that there is no clear moral choice. You can, the trolley that somehow or another you are controlling has lost its brakes, and it can either go down one track and kill a person or go down the other track and kill a half dozen people.
But the one person is really precious to you, or it's a genius.
Or any of a number of things, right? Any of a number of things. The idea being that sometimes there's no good, clear moral choice.
Yeah, I agree. Hello, John. Hello, Tat.
And there isn't, right? Because under most circumstances, I would say, now you got to come out strong against genocide as a minimal to get my support. And yet, I'm just going to put it out there, in the face of climate change, what is happening? We have the Harris Walz ticket that actually is talking about climate change, that is actually talking about it being an existential threat, talking about it being a huge priority for the administration. This is important.
Yeah, that's
This
what we
is
have to do.
life and death.
Yeah, and when it comes to
And we have the other main candidate in 45 in T-Rump, who in fact has denied climate change, who says it's a hoax, and who talks about going for the liquid gold of our oil, developing more oil fields, dismantling the EPA, rolling back, not just rolling back Biden's environmental legislations, but in fact, to take them back further than they ever have been, like in the last 40 years, to again dismantle the agencies that are there to protect us. He's been caught selling his loyalties to oil giants, right?
he does it openly.
He does it openly. You just give me, this much money for my campaign. It's going to be the best deal you've ever made because I'll be for you.
And what's more terrifying is all the people who are just saying, okay, just rule us. We're okay. Just beat us, daddy. We like it.
I'm not entirely sure what is happening with their cognition, but I do know that he is out for himself only, and he doesn't mind killing the entire planet if it advances his personal.
Well,
I'm just like Trump and Elon Musk together. I feel like I'm living in a bad James Bond movie.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
I've got to say. Okay.
I want to comment on that. Can't vote for Harris stance. I understand the emotion, and maybe it's an emotion that is inconquerable. And I understand that too, because maybe names and faces of people who have been bombed to death with our 2,000-pound bombs. But I want to say this: we are all passengers on the USS vicious corporate, war machine, and we are neither in control nor completely free of complicity. And what we do, we have to do as a mass. And what effect we can have has to be carefully planned, and there's no clean way to do it, as you were saying with the trolley problem. So people who are going for purity and saying, "Oh, I'm not a part of blowing up the Palestinians," oh, yeah, you are.
Well, and I'm just going to point out that inaction is action, and that we also know when it comes to any other issue, that the Harris-Walz ticket is far and away the more humane and moral choice. And I'm speaking this as a queer woman who has lived through the Reagan and Bush senior years, who watched the AIDS epidemic ravage the community, who, I remember that virulent homophobia coming from the very top echelons, and we see it returning in Trump. I don't want to go back there, personally. We know that Trump is actually already looking, and Kushner, his son-in-law, is already looking for real estate edges in the cleared and devastated Gaza and West Bank regions, that they are absolutely not opposed to ongoing slaughter and colonial occupation of those areas. They are looking to personally profit from it. So there is no moral choice in avoiding this election. There is that is not a moral option.
Yes.
And the clearest moral option is to go for the mitigation, to act in a way that will help us move forward. It's not going to be ushering in the perfect world. It's not going to be ushering in the perfect society. We're still going to have to put our noses to the grindstone. Ouch. We're still going to have to work arm in arm, hand in hand, to do the social organizing, to do the political organizing, to do the hard, ongoing work of social change. But under the Harris-Walz administration, we're going to be able to do that. Under the Trump administration, let's just face facts. They're looking to actually make illegal public protests. They remember the releasing of federal troops to Portland because Portland had the audacity to go to the streets and demand justice and an end to police abuse and an end to institutional racism.
Trying to frighten us by snatching us off the street.
Right? That was the first administration when he didn't have as much power as he has now. So there is no continued organizing for social change in any kind of way we're familiar with under that second administration. Let's stop it before it happens. Let's please talk to friends and family that might be feeling a little apathetic, that might be feeling a little disenchanted, and let's enchant them. Let's talk about what morality is. And sometimes we get a bunch of cards that we'd rather have an entirely different deck. We don't have that deck. This is the hand we've got. And so we make our best choice and we continue to organize and we continue to move forward against climate change, for a sustainable infrastructure, for justice, for peace, and for a compassionate society.
Well said. Every praxis needs a vision. Every praxis.
There I am, visionary. Yeah. What else do you have?
Well, if you'll pardon me for being spooky, even I can tell that our loved ones are here. So maybe you could do your cards.
I'll do the cards. To absent friends who aren't so absent. It's lovely. Let's go ahead and look at these cards. What I have today. Let's put them in the other order. Okay, what we have today. We have the 8 of Wands. It's inversed. We have the Star card, also inversed. And then we have the Lovers. What does it all mean? We are looking at the inverse Star card. Let's talk about that. The inverse Star card talks about losing faith. It talks about becoming disenchanted. It talks about the universe is, I'm going to say the universe is a place that wants to extend its gifts, that wants to, that sings in a harmony to let you know that you are a part of the universal chorus, that you have unique genius to offer. When the Star card is on its head, it means that we're kind of shutting ourselves off to that kind of vibration. We're shutting ourselves off from that universal flow of intuitive keenness, of knowing that we belong, of knowing that we are engaging in the mysteries with every step we take. We cut ourselves off from that when we feel like we are just out of steam. We have been, time is passing fast and we have been busy. We've been maybe freaked out. We've been jumping at shadows.
Oh, Kitty's giving a grito there.
And yeah. Right side up, we see Kitty's busy. Kitty is jumping at every leaf that falls. Kitty is, here, honey. Kitty is jumping at every leaf that falls. Kitty is wearing themselves out through indiscretion, but they realize time is passing and they gotta jump for all they're worth. They gotta play. They gotta be kitties. And this, I think, applies to us as we have, as our community has been sounding the alarms, doing the work, doing all of the stuff. And what are we seeing? We're seeing very concerning polling numbers.
They're bullshit.
Sure, likely, but it adds a sense of fatigue. And so it's time to kind of refocus and realize that we shouldn't take every opportunity. We should be thoughtful and strategic in how we spend our energy, because we sadly do not have an infinite supply of energy. So let's be thoughtful. Let's maybe not engage in rage bait just for the sake of engaging in rage bait because it hits a button that makes us feel sort of, gives us that jolt of adrenaline. We are wearing ourselves out with that. So be strategic, be thoughtful, be effective. That is the lesson of the Eight of Wands upside down, because again, we are looking at disenchantment, we are looking at disappointment, we are looking at isolating ourselves from the universal flow of intuition. We cannot do that, right? We have to make sure we turn that cup back upside down, back right side up, and that it is able to catch that intuitive flow. And how do we do all that? It's the Lovers, friends. We got the Lovers. The Lovers is
Meow.
aw. The Lovers is really all about finding kin and finding compassion. It's about enjoying the beauty of connection. It's not necessarily about romantic love, though that surely is a part of it.
You know, when you said finding kin, my brain went the wrong direction. I was thinking, is he beaching? Is Ken beaching? Find Ken?
Oh, I get it. Yeah,
Not
Ken.
that
No,
kind of
not
Ken.
that Ken. No.
That Ken, you.
But finding your crew, finding your clan, finding those that really get you, and enjoying the world with them, right? In its community, it's also about immersing yourself in the beauty of this world, because even as we are fighting the evildoers, even as we are watching a world going off the rails, ran off the rails by billionaires with an axe to grind, we know the world is beautiful. And we know that we love the people in this world. We love you. We love, right? Love generates love. And that is the way out of the disenchantment of feeling overworked and overwhelmed. It is the way to refocus, follow the path with heart, follow follow, let beauty be your guide, and let you turn towards actions that increase love, compassion, and beauty.
Yay.
And that is what the cards have today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. This is now Bridge to a Better World. Go ahead and hit the like button if you would. We would appreciate that. It certainly does help the algorithms. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It's always lovely to see you. We look forward to convening with the community on Friday mornings at 9. We please hit the notification bell so you'll know whenever we take to the airwaves, as the political season is well and truly on us, as unexpected events unfold. We may drop in at unexpected times. So please do hit that notification bell, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends and family.
Thanks for being here. Our love goes out to you and to all the ships at sea. Yay. Yay. Bye.